Hello and welcome to People's View. Today we're going to be speaking with Senator Kevin Avard. But before we get started, Kevin, I just want to say a few words about the Nashua Republican City Committee. We have a new chair and vice chair, and we have a whole new things that are coming up on our website, which is nashuagop.org. And if you want to look at it, it'll be coming up. It'll be updated, and we'll have more information about what's going on both in Concord and here in Nashua.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. Tom Lanzaro, he's the new chair, and I think Corey.
Corey McLean.
Yeah, and so I think they're gonna do a good job. They're eager, fresh energy, and so we'll hopefully
be seeing a lot of new things and things we'll be following up on. We'll have interviews sometime later in February.
Around the corner.
Right around the corner. But do you have something that you wanted to talk about today?
Yeah, we're doing a lot of legislation right now, and we're closing out January, and I think next week we're probably going to, instead of having session, we're going to be really loading up on some of the primary committees, judiciary, finance, energy, as well as health and human services, and so we're double booked, and so we're going to be going through legislation, a lot of legislation. This past week, we passed just a few bills. One was my bill on energy, another bill on energy, I should say, and it's for the community hosts so that people can expand their net metering. So instead of it being located in one municipality, it'll allow the municipal host, both private and the cities, to go beyond the border of their city.
To tie in
to say, if there's a portion of Hudson or Hollis that wants to partake in that, and that way we can take more advantage of a lot of the local generated energy of whether it's hydro or solar, and we're trying to come up with these baby step solutions so more generation locally helps save on overall the energy, and so. We have another one that's coming up next week, which will expand it as well to, say, hospitals and maybe like churches or something to that effect. The governor made it very, very clear that he wants to just take baby steps with this so that it doesn't become a burden. There's no cost shifting. But the Department of Energy, after their review of all that net metering, it's very minuscule. And what it does is it allows more local generation, which helps with overall reliability.
Does that work only for the municipalities, or does independent profit organizations tie in on that?
So right now, it can be a private organization or a municipality with this particular bill, and then I have a sister bill to it as well, which will allow, say, the hospitals, because 90% of our hospitals are nonprofit.
Right.
So if they can take advantage of lower energy costs, help them out with some of their expenses, it's just, these are little steps that we're going through. We also have I put in a bill for the purchase power agreements, and which is drawing everybody to the table. A lot of the clean energy folks, a lot of the bio, the traditional generators of energy, and they all have their say. And, the goal is to lower energy costs, increase liability. And so, you get all those people in the same room, and you can get really lost in the weeds very quickly. So we put in a bill, very broad in its intent, and I think what we're going to end up with is more of a pilot program.
Yeah. It sounds like you're going to be able to work it out, see if there's any bugs in it, and whether it works this way or that way. I brought up the question with sharing it with, profit organizations like Fidelity, who put up this big system. If they have excess, are they going to be able to sell it or not?
That's a good question. I think they'll be able to, if they have if they're using like 1 or 2 megawatts, they can put it in put it in, I don't know, at a wholesale or at a retail rate. What we want to avoid is if they sell it at a retail rate, then there's a potential for cost shifting, and we don't want that. We want to make it so that if it's excess, it's something they're not using.
Right.
Don't gouge. The people, and you don't need to make an extra profit out of it. If you're lowering your energy costs, that's a wonderful thing. Maybe if you sell it at a wholesale rate, that helps out with the grid and a certain amount of reliability, especially when there's a demand. But I think what the governor made very clear, and he's the one who's going to make the signatures. These little baby steps
Yeah.
are a way to progress so that it's serving everybody. But that'd be great. If we can lower it for all the businesses, and it would be a wonderful idea. What I brought today is one bill. We're going to be talking about marijuana.
Okay, that's
Everybody's
a little bit
favorite
different.
topic these days. And I put in a bill. This is what a bill particularly looks like. It's called 180 FN, SB 180 FN. And when we generate a bill, this is how it comes back to us. And I think if you'll see on your screen how it looks, it'll tell you about the act of the bill relative to product labeling and information guide and requirements for cannabis products. And then if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see where it says the analysis of the bill. And this is how, in every committee, this is how we look at a bill. It tells you, in essence, what the analysis is. And for my viewers, this bill basically revises the warning labels that are placed on marijuana products sold at alternative treatment centers. We call them ATCs. And it requires that the product information guide be distributed by the alternative treatment centers with the marijuana products. So in New Hampshire, you can't go to a store and just buy marijuana like you can in Massachusetts. We have what is called alternative treatment centers, and that's for marijuana for medical purposes. And so what this bill does is it's more of a consumer advocacy type of bill. A lot of times, if you pick up an aspirin bottle, it tells you all kinds of information on the aspirin. What's in
And they
it?
have paper.
Right, if you have an antibiotic, you get all this extra paper that goes along with it, and it tells you what's inside it, what are some of the potential side effects, and marijuana is a lot of people are pushing for marijuana in the state of New Hampshire, and so it's more or less, if they're going to go that way, you got to know what's in it. We're not going to talk a little bit about the side effects because they're numerous in the bill. So, but if you look at the first page, that's what that does. It basically gives you a brief description. And then on the second page, it kind of lists, you'll see on the second page, is about 30 lines. And what we do in committee is we go line by line, and we'll just go down, like line 1 is the new section, product labeling. Line 7, this product has not been analyzed for approval from the FDA. Information like that comes into our committee, and we have to go through that line by line. And then it tells you a little bit, like on line 19, basically, A through H, as to what we're looking for with this particular type of bill. And you'll see that, and I don't know if it pops up on your screen. But this is one of the things that it does. And finally, on page 2, it just tells you about effective dates and whatnot. And so the final page that you have on here is what is called the fiscal note. So if it's going to cost the state any money to, for the Department of Health and Human Services to run the program, there's supposed to be a note. But because of all the influx of bills this year, LBA, they're the ones who give us the information as to what it's going to cost. They, due to the constraints of the Office of Legislative Budget Assistance, is unable to provide a fiscal note. We're getting a lot of those this year because of all the bills that are coming in. And so that's what a particular bill looks like, and we have to debate, and we're going to hear a lot of discussion about the pros and cons to marijuana. There'll be some advocates that are anti this bill because they think it threatens the ability for the marijuana to get passed in the House or in the Senate, and that has nothing to do with this. This really is about you, the consumer. So, Carl, when you go to buy, not really. And finally, what I wanted to show you is when we testify, sometimes we have what are called talking points. And that's the final page here. It's talking points, and it's a bullet point of basically reiterating what the bill does. And you know, I want to let you know that when we legislate, it's not like DC, right? You're seeing these papers. It's this thin. When you go to DC, it's this thin, right?
Everything is in there besides the main label on it.
Right, and you have no idea and it's impossible.
That's a terrible way to run the legislation.
But New Hampshire is beautiful because every bill has to be notified. It has to be notified to the public. The public comes in, they can testify, pro or con. They get to see what it's about. They get to be heard. You don't get shut down. And
you can testify without going in, too, by
yes,
sending
you can.
in.
And what we're doing lately, these last couple of years, because COVID, so the positive thing about what's going on is now you can actually look at what's going on in committee online. Everything is broadcast. I mean, that's something Dick Gagnon years ago wanted to do.
Took a while to do it.
Took a while to do it, but and he's not here to enjoy it. But the topic of marijuana is it's a pressing issue these days because everybody's saying, well, look, everybody else is doing it. And it's funny. I went to a particular event, and there was a person who owned one of those facilities in Massachusetts. I said, "Oh, so you own one of those distributors for pot?" He says, "Oh yeah." And then he said, "Yeah, but I'm getting out of it." I said, "Oh, really? I thought you'd be making all kinds of money." He says, "Yeah, that's too many headaches." And I thought, "Oh, that's an interesting perspective." And then he turned around and said, "But you're going to make it legal in New Hampshire, right?" And I looked at him like, "Okay, I want to know why you're getting out of it."
Yeah, all right. Well, there's problems in a lot of the states in the West that have started, 5-6 years ago?
Yeah, and it's not making the news, and I don't understand it. Everybody needs to be fully informed.
The media seems to be selecting what they look at and what they don't look at.
Yeah, it's discouraging. I mean, if there's pros and cons, you should have both sides of the issue. And I mean, if you go on YouTube and you can, I know there was looking at another channel just so I can get another perspective on it. And they were talking about sleep deprivation with pot. And the gentleman was, he's a doctor, and he was just saying that. So, what it does is it makes you feel sleepy. But what people don't realize is that it really interrupts the REM sleep. So what happens is after a while, your body says, "I need the REM sleep," and it tries to catch up to itself. It has to. And so you get these wild and almost hallucinogenic dreams
really?
when it's taxed at a certain level. And then you feel exhausted. So you're not really, you might feel tired, you might get the munchies.
So that part of the reaction isn't really discussed enough.
Yeah. So, and but that's just one side, If you want to hear a whole thing, everybody just wants it because all the other states are doing it. Well, get a little deeper than that.
Yeah.
Try to figure out. I mean, we recently did a show. I did a show just about Alzheimer's just the other day. And has anybody done any study on how that affects your brain long term? We're going to have about a 23% increase in Alzheimer's by 2050. And so somebody said, well, you get a high carb diet, that could affect the fact that you might be susceptible to this disease. Excuse me. So what does that have to do with marijuana? Well, I don't know, but you don't know either.
Well, there has been studies. I mean, I think back in 2018, I served on that big committee of 50 people from all different levels, and we, I think, talked. Well, it took a whole year, and we did 2 meetings a month, so that was 24 meetings, and it's a real good the chairman did a great job of summarizing everything. I want to know whether the bill that you're talking about actually referred to that.
It doesn't refer to that. It basically refers to using federal guidelines as far as the right to know what's in it. Hey, was it treated with Roundup?
Well,
Stuff like that. What are...
Right. One of the things had to do with that was written up because it allowed you to grow your own. If you're going to use fertilizers, do you clean it before you use it? That was, and do we have processes that are certified as adequate to solve that problem? And there are all other problems along with it. And do you keep track of the feelings that you have after you take it?
There's a host of issues, and you can't create your own opioids in your own backyard. And I know there's a libertarian perspective on this. Well, there's alcohol, and of course there's cigarettes and vaping and all that kind of stuff. And to them, it's just leave me alone. Let me do my own thing. And this particular bill just says, look, if you're going to get it at a medical treatment center, you have to, the Department of Health and Human Services in New Hampshire has to follow the same federal guidelines.
So you're talking about stuff that you have to have a prescription for?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's done differently.
Right.
And they did follow a lot of the things that were written up. It's because there's a heck of a lot of things that they have to do to the product.
Oh, absolutely. And so we just wanted the people to be informed. Again, it's another baby step, but people can overreact. It's either pro or it's against, and it's not like that. But I wanted to show, this is just a typical type of bill that we do. We have a lot more complicated, issues that are coming up before us. We'll sit in committee just for a few hours, just going over one bill, and we did last week. And there are major consequences for it. We had one bill which, on its surface, it sounded like a good idea, but if we put in our budget $330 million, no, $330,000, $330,000, we'll be able to benefit from a $200 million windfall from the feds to take care of our elderly. The problem with a bill like that, you think that's a good thing until you read the fine print. What type of state rights are you ceding to the federal government? They give you this money, then all kinds of strings are attached to it, and then you say, well, whatever happened to my freedoms? Whatever happened to, well, we took this money from the federal government, and now they can tell you, well, it could be any issue, or it could be vaccines, it could be anything, but we surrender states' rights when we get these kind of grants or these kind of.
You have to watch out for it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big problem in the education right now. If you take a lot of more and more colleges are not taking any government money, because they have to abide by these crazy ruals that they come out with.
Yeah, and whether it's federal money or grant money from private industries, corporate America basically can create a narrative in our university system. So if the professor wants to keep his job or her job, and you've got to teach a particular certain narrative, or you'll lose the grant money. So, are you being educated or indoctrinated?
Right.
Speaking of education, I did put in a bill, SB 77, and it's language that we're putting back into the law. It was omitted somehow, and it had to do with private schools and school boards. So, if there's a hardship in one of the schools, Senator Lang gave a perfect illustration. Two illustrations, actually, one on bullying and one on rape. And if a child was either bullied or raped in one of the schools, and there wasn't another public school available, well, this bill would allow that child and the funds to educate that child to go to a private school. So the money follows the child. And it's not.
And it doesn't have to be in the same.
It doesn't. But one of the things, It's a conversation between the school board and the parent, and it's just enabling language. It's not a "you shall do this."
Yeah.
But right now,
You
because
can do this rather than
yeah, and they've
shall.
done it for years, and now we're just putting it back into the law.
Mm-hmm.
But every Democrat voted against it. They really. Well, if you vote for this, you're voting for higher taxes. That's just not the truth.
That's right.
What you're doing is you're voting for parental rights in the school board, your local school boards, to come up with this decision to make sure that the welfare of that child is taken care of. It's about the kids, and we didn't want to get into a long debate about it but it was.
But it's not even true.
Yeah,
because you don't take that much of the state allocation for money away from the school.
The school still gets money.
Yeah.
Right. It's
for a
just
person that doesn't use it.
right, and generally you can go to either a charter school or private school at pretty much at a
Or
fraction.
even teach at home.
Yeah, yeah, and
So-
and that saves the school money because you don't have to provide the services.
Right.
So anyway, it was party line, and
Well, it's a control factor.
It really is, and sometimes, I hate to quote The Matrix a lot. Matrix was a movie, and the theme of the movie was really interesting because what happened in the movie was this guy Neo becomes aware that he's being used as a battery. At one time, the machines worked for the people, and then the machines got AI, artificial intelligence, and then they realized that the machine had its self-interest, and instead of working for the people, it made slaves of the people to run the machines. Well, what does that have to do with the school system? Well, it has to do with the machinery of bureaucracy. You set up a system to serve the interest in the needs of the children. And what's happening, it's as though the children are now there to make sure that the institution survives. And it's upside down.
Yeah.
The whole reason we have an education system is to make sure that these children are educated, and they become producers, and they become citizens that help our economy, our culture to grow, rather than being there to keep adding more money to the machine and more, jobs and jobs and jobs and jobs and buildings, and the structure becomes top heavy. The whole concept of why we have it in our Constitution is for the children to be guaranteed a certain education. There's even piety that was put into the Constitution. I don't know if that's being taught anymore, but it is there. I read it myself.
That's right. That's right.
But so it's just just putting it back into the law, what we're already practicing, and it's to protect the kids. It allows the parents and the school boards to come up with a solution. Right now, so.
Something I saw just in the Union Leader a couple days ago that showed that tax cuts can pay off. And I think we all realize that here in New Hampshire, mm-hmm. because we had excess funds coming in the last 3 or 4 years. We've collected a lot of money, and so it does, because when the money is used more effectively,
right.
which goes for most people and most businesses, they don't get stuck with bureaucracy because they failed. They know that. And what they can do is they can react faster to problems, and they come up with conclusions that work for them. It may not work for everybody, but it works for them. They become more profitable and they pay more taxes.
Yeah, I totally agree. I know this year we're going to have a real interesting discussion, because we are going to have to increase salaries because mm-hmm. of the inflation rates. It's if we're going to be competitive in the job market, especially with the state employees, we're going to have to consider. If somebody's working at McDonald's making $14, $15 an hour, or Dunkin' Donuts, we got to have, LNAs or nurses or people that are working in the state that are being compensated. And a dignified way. So we've got a serious conversation that we're going to have to deal with.
I think you have to turn it over to people that are doing it for a profit.
Yeah. Well, that we can consider that, but at present, what's facing us right now is we don't want to lose some of our workforce.
Yeah, right. I mean, you got very good people that are trained. You don't want them going to another state or going to another function.
Right, and there is that danger. Benefits are great, blah blah blah, but at the same time, you gotta compensate them in a way that we keep them. We have some very good workers, so we want to make sure that we keep that institutional knowledge.
Nurses and other mental health people and a few other things are being very much underpaid.
Well, that was part of that issue that I just earlier talked about, the 330,000. We got to, some of these people that are working, with our seniors, that they need a better salary. So instead of, maybe we can bump it up that way and
well,
take care of them.
I hope we realize what to do, and we don't take the solution that the federals are doing, where, for interesting, they finally recognized that the IRS completely needs to be redone.
Yeah.
So they ordered, 80,000 new people? That isn't the way you go in editing things. You don't do that effective. You can't take that much in a year if you're,
There's a lot of things that need to be redone. That or in the FBI. I mean, I'm just.
Oh, that's something else. We'll get that into another meeting,
scary.
because we've run out of time again.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you.
Mm-hmm.
We got to do this again because I think people need to know a little bit more what goes on and how it functions up there in Concord. And you're a good example of persons working hard at it.
Well, we're trying to, yeah. And if I could remind people, Carl, if you like the channel, please subscribe. It helps us with our algorithms and helps us get our message out. And we're really here for you. And it's important.
And don't forget to look at the National Republican Committee's new website and what's going to happen over the next few years. It's election year in the local towns.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to be looking at. There's going to be a lot of people we'll be interviewing on the station. Okay? Well, thank you again for your time.
Thank you.